On an October morning in 1492, a sailor aboard the Pinta, one of three small ships sailing westward across the vast Atlantic, spotted land. After weeks at sea, the crew's hopes, worn thin by fear and doubt, were rekindled. This was it, land. This momentous cry of tierra. Tierra marked the beginning of a new era, an era of exploration, conquest, and cultural exchange on an unprecedented scale. The man who led this daring expedition was Christopher Columbus, a seasoned sailor from Genoa, Italy. Driven by a potent mix of ambition, faith, and perhaps a touch of delusion, Columbus had set sail west with a royal commission from Spain's Queen Isabella. His goal? To find a new, faster trade route to the East Indies, a land of spices and riches. What Columbus found instead, however, was something altogether different. A new world, a landmass previously unknown to Europeans. This discovery would forever alter the course of history, redrawing maps, connecting continents, and sparking centuries of exploration, colonization, and cultural exchange. Little did Columbus know as he stepped ashore that fateful day, planting the Spanish flag on Caribbean soil, that his journey would have consequences far beyond his wildest imaginings. He had not only discovered a new world, but also opened a Pandora's box of complex issues: colonization, disease, slavery, and cultural annihilation, the echoes of which still resonate today. Born in Genoa, Italy, in 1451, Christopher Columbus was a man of the sea. From a young age he was drawn to the allure of the ocean, its vastness, and its promise of adventure and fortune. While details of his early life remain shrouded in some mystery, we know that he honed his seafaring skills on trading voyages across the Mediterranean and along the coasts of Africa. Columbus was a man of his time, living in an era where Europe was eager to find new trade routes to the east. The Silk Road, the traditional land route to Asia, was fraught with danger and controlled by middlemen, driving up the cost of spices and other luxury goods. A sea route, it was believed, would be faster, cheaper, and more efficient. Fueled by this ambition and a strong belief in his own calculations, Columbus, convinced that the Earth was smaller than commonly thought, proposed sailing west to reach the east. His idea, however, was met with skepticism by many scholars and potential patrons. It was only after years of tireless lobbying that he finally secured the backing of Queen Isabella of Spain, who saw in Columbus's venture a chance to expand Spain's influence and wealth. Armed with the Queen's support, three small ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and a crew of about 90 men, Columbus embarked on his perilous voyage into the unknown. His journey was a testament to his unwavering belief in his vision, a vision that would ultimately reshape the world. The year was 1492. On August 3rd, under the blazing Spanish sun, three ships, the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, set sail from Palos de la Frontera. Aboard these vessels were Christopher Columbus and his crew of around 90 men. They were embarking on a journey westward across the vast uncharted expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. Their mission, commissioned by the Spanish monarchy, was to discover a new sea route to the East Indies, a land of spices and riches. At the time, the East Indies were a major source of valuable goods, and finding a direct sea route was a coveted goal for European powers. The journey was fraught with challenges. Weeks turned into months as the ships battled unpredictable weather, dwindling supplies, and the growing fears of a crew sailing into the unknown. The vastness of the ocean, stretching endlessly before them, was a constant reminder of the perilous nature of their undertaking. Despite these hardships, Columbus, driven by his unwavering belief in his mission, pressed on. He navigated by the stars, relying on his knowledge of the sea and his unwavering determination. His leadership, though at times questioned by his weary and increasingly apprehensive crew, was instrumental in maintaining morale and keeping the ships sailing westward. After over 2 months at sea, with tensions running high and hope beginning to dwindle, a cry rang out from the mast of the Pinta Tierra, Tierra, land. The date was October 12, 1492, a day that would be etched in history books for centuries to come. Columbus and his crew had made landfall, not in the East Indies as they had anticipated, but on an island in the Caribbean Sea, a place they would name San Salvador. The encounter was one of wonder and trepidation. The indigenous people, the Taino, who greeted the newcomers with a mixture of curiosity and caution, were unlike any people the Europeans had ever encountered. They were brown-skinned, spoke a strange language, and lived in a world vastly different from their own. Columbus, believing he had reached the Indies, called the Taino Indians, a misnomer that would stick for centuries. He described them in his journals as a gentle and generous people, eager to trade and share their resources. He was particularly struck by their gold ornaments, which fueled his belief that he was on the cusp of discovering vast riches. The arrival of Columbus and his crew marked the beginning of a new era in the Caribbean. It was the start of European exploration and colonization of the Americas, a process that would have far-reaching and often devastating consequences for the native populations. Section 5, the Transatlantic Trade, a two-way street. Columbus's voyages to the New World weren't just about exploration and discovery, they were also about trade. His initial encounter with the Taino people, though marked by a degree of mutual curiosity, quickly evolved into an exchange of goods and resources. This marked the beginning of the transatlantic trade, a complex network of exchange that would profoundly impact both the Old and New Worlds. From the Americas, Europeans returned with a bounty of new and exotic goods. Tomatoes, potatoes, corn, chocolate. These were just a few of the agricultural products that would transform European diets and agricultural practices. The discovery of vast reserves of gold and silver in the New World further fueled the transatlantic trade, enriching European powers and fueling colonial ambitions. In return, Europeans brought to the Americas goods and technologies that were previously unknown. Horses, cattle, pigs. These animals, introduced by the Spanish, would have a profound impact on life in the Americas, transforming agriculture, transportation, and even warfare. European tools, weapons, and technologies also made their way across the Atlantic, altering the technological landscape of the New World. This exchange, however, was far from equal. The transatlantic trade, while bringing about new goods and ideas, also became a conduit for disease and exploitation, forever altering the demographic and cultural fabric of the Americas. Section 6. Shadows over Paradise, the Fate of Native People. The arrival of Columbus and subsequent waves of European explorers and colonists had a devastating impact on the indigenous populations of the Americas. While the initial encounters were often marked by curiosity and trade, they soon gave way to a much darker chapter in human history. European diseases, against which the native populations had no immunity, swept through the Americas like wildfire. Smallpox, measles, influenza. These diseases decimated entire communities, killing millions and leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. The quest for gold and land further fueled the mistreatment of indigenous populations. Driven by greed and a sense of European superiority, colonists enslaved native peoples, forcing them to work in mines and on plantations. This brutal system of forced labor led to countless deaths and the destruction of traditional ways of life. The cultural clash between Europeans and indigenous populations also had tragic consequences. European attempts to convert native peoples to Christianity, often forced and brutal, led to the suppression of traditional beliefs and practices. Languages were lost, sacred sites were destroyed, and entire cultures were decimated. Section 7. The Columbian Exchange, a World Transformed. The voyages of Christopher Columbus ignited a global exchange of plants, animals, ideas, and diseases, now known as the Columbian Exchange. This exchange had a profound impact on the world, transforming diets, revolutionizing agriculture, and altering the course of human history. Prior to Columbus's voyages, many of the foods we now consider staples were unknown in Europe. Potatoes, tomatoes, corn, beans, and chocolate, all native to the Americas, were introduced to the Old World, enriching diets and transforming agricultural practices. The arrival of these new food crops had a profound impact on population growth and land use in Europe and Asia. The Columbian Exchange was not a one-way street. From Europe, animals such as horses, cattle, pigs, and sheep were introduced to the Americas. These animals had a profound impact on the lives of indigenous peoples, providing new sources of food and transportation, and transforming warfare. Wheat, rice, and other Old World crops also found fertile ground in the Americas, altering the agricultural landscape. The exchange of ideas and technologies was another significant aspect of the Columbian Exchange. European printing techniques, shipbuilding technologies, and metalworking skills were introduced to the Americas, while knowledge of New World medicinal plants and agricultural practices made their way back to Europe. Section 8. The Legacy of Columbus. Hero or villain? The legacy of Christopher Columbus is a complex and contested one. For centuries he was hailed as a hero, a visionary explorer who discovered the New World and opened up new frontiers for exploration and trade. Statues were erected in his honor, cities and countries were named after him, and his voyages were celebrated as pivotal moments in human history. However, in recent decades there has been a growing movement to reassess Columbus's legacy, acknowledging the darker side of his voyages and their impact on indigenous populations. Critics point to the devastating consequences of European colonization, the genocide of native peoples, the transatlantic slave trade, and the destruction of indigenous cultures, as reasons to challenge Columbus's heroic image. The truth, as is often the case with historical figures, lies somewhere in between these two extremes. Columbus was a man of his time, driven by ambition, curiosity, and a belief in European superiority. His voyages, while undoubtedly significant in terms of their impact on world history, were also marked by violence, exploitation, and cultural annihilation. Section 9. Conclusion. A complex legacy. The story of Christopher Columbus is not a simple tale of heroic discovery. It is a complex narrative woven from threads of ambition, courage, curiosity, and brutality. His voyages, while opening up new frontiers and igniting a global exchange of goods, ideas, and diseases, also ushered in an era of colonization, exploitation, and cultural destruction that would forever alter the course of human history. As we grapple with the complexities of Columbus's legacy, it is essential to move beyond simplistic narratives of hero and villain. We must acknowledge both the positive and negative consequences of his voyages, recognizing the profound impact they had on both the old and new worlds. More importantly, we must use this historical understanding to inform our present and future. By acknowledging the injustices of the past, we can work towards a more just and equitable future, one that honors the diversity of human cultures and recognizes the interconnectedness of our shared history.